Okay, so this video is meant to show you how to simplify your code with the idea of functions. And so in this code, my goal is to use Morse code to write a message. And so let's say I wanted my message to be hi there in Morse code, and I've gone and I've looked up that H is 4 dots, I is 2 dots, and then subsequently T is a dash, H 4 dots, E is a dot, R is dot dash dot, and E is a dot. Okay, and then the standard in Morse code is that a dot is a certain length of time, and then a dash is 3 times the dot. So for my code, I'm going to make a dot be 200 milliseconds, and then 3 times that would be my dash. So my dash is 600 milliseconds. And then the other thing that is important in the code is knowing when a symbol is done being played and when a word is done being played. Okay, so the convention is that if you have the difference between two symbols, so in my first word there, I have the word hi. So there should be a marker between the letter H and the letter I. And that marker is defined as just an empty silence, and that silence is the length of a dot. So for my case, that silence would be 200 milliseconds. And then if I have a word, if I have two different words, I have to have a space in between those two words to denote, hey, it's the next word coming. And that, by definition, is the length of a dash. So that will be 600 milliseconds of rest. So in terms of kind of how this code would play out, it would be dot, 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 200 milliseconds of rest, dot, dot, 600 milliseconds of rest, dash, 200 milliseconds of rest, dot, 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 200 milliseconds of rest, dot, 200 milliseconds of rest, dot, dash, dot, 200 milliseconds of rest, dot, 600 milliseconds of rest. Okay, so that is the basic how you'd write something in Morse code. Now, to go ahead and write to our speaker pin, so I am connecting it to pin 0. And remember to access our pins for our speaker. Those blocks are in the advanced under pins. And to just connect your pin, we have to go to more. To just connect your speaker on the extension board, you are going to go ahead and use this block right here, this analog set pitch pin, and then whatever pin you have it connected to. It's just defaulted as 0, so I just connect my speaker to pin 0. And you're going to put that in the start. I've already put mine in there, so I'm just going to throw that. Now, I'm going to say I want this to happen when I press a button. So when I press a button, I want to start my Morse code. So I'm going to come down here to pins, to more, and I am going to have this block here, analog pitch 0 for milliseconds. So what it's going to do is it's going to play a particular frequency for a certain amount of time. So I want to write my letter H. So that is, I'm just going to pick a nice sounding frequency of 330 hertz. And it's a dot, so it's going to be 200 milliseconds. And that's the first dot in my H. So I need to, there's 2 ways you could do it. You could just bring another block here and do your 330 or 200, okay? Or you can duplicate it because it's the same thing. So that's my dot, 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 dot. And then that's my letter H. So now I have to have a space between my letters. So that is going to be rest. And in make code, that is under basics. And that is going to be the pause. And we want it to be paused for 200 milliseconds. So that's my letter H, space between my letters. And now I'm going to do my I. And my I is 2 dots. So I'm going to just duplicate this. So I've got dot and dot. That's my I. And that completes my first word. So now I need to have a space that is 600 milliseconds of rest. So I'm going to come over here, have my pause, and the defaults don't have 600 milliseconds, but you can just type that in. And I'll remember that, okay? So if I were to download this to my microbit and press my button A, we should be able to hear my hi in Morse code. So it's downloaded. I'm going to press A. Okay, so we hear the 4 dots, dot, 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 dot. Okay. So another way to think about writing this code is writing it through functions. And a function is just a shorthand way to write lines of code. And sometimes those functions are just tasks, like just do this. And sometimes those functions are when I give you something, I want you to do something with it. And those are a little bit more complicated. We're going to go with just a pretty easy function right now saying, I'm going to make this function. I just want you to do this. So, and it kind of helps make it clear, especially with Morse code, like to remind yourself, it's hard to check that these are dots, right? Because it's like this analog pitch 330 for 200 milliseconds. But if we write a function that's called a dot, it's a little easier to check to make sure that our Morse code is the way we want it to be. So we're going to write a function, and the function blocks are in these advanced blocks. So scroll down a little bit. It's right here at the top. And initially, there's nothing here. So we're going to say make a function. And you have this block here, and I'm going to call it a dot. I'm going to make my function a dot. And I don't need to add anything because I'm not going to input anything in order for this function to execute. Like I don't need to input a word. I don't need to input a number, an image. I just say when I call dot, I want dot to run. Okay, so this is the tricky part. So when you write the function, it just kind of spits that function out on the middle of your screen, and you might be like, where'd it go? So it's actually underneath my little sticky note there. So just be careful. When you write your function, it does show up. It just may be hidden somewhere behind some code. Okay, so my function of a dot is just this. It's this analog pitch 330 or 200 milliseconds. So I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to put that there. Okay, so that's a dot. And the other thing that I need right now is I need a function for this space between symbols. So I'm going to come over here to advanced, come here to functions. Oh, and see, now I have some stuff right here. Okay, so I actually have this call function and then a way to kind of return that value. But I'm going to make another function. And this one I'm going to call symbol space. Okay, up in there, it's kind of hidden. And my symbol space is like a pause in time of 200 milliseconds. So I'm just going to bring that over here. Okay. And then I want to have another function that is a space between words. And so I'm going to come down here to functions. I'm going to make a function. And this one I'm going to call it a word space. And my word space, okay, so here it is. My word space is 600 milliseconds of rest. Bring that in here. It doesn't have it. I have to type it in. Okay, so I've just made some functions, and I can write this same code, but I can see it a little bit more visually with the fact that they're dots. So if I'm going to do this for when I press button B. So when I press button B, I want it to do my code. So I want to call my function. So I'm going to scroll down here, select functions, and now here's where I'm going to like have my executioner. Like I want you to do this. So I'm going to bring up my call. And when it says call dot, it's going to do a dot. Okay, so if I were to download this and I were just to press button B, you just hear a single dot. Okay, so it's downloaded. I'm going to press button B. Just does a dot. Okay, so I actually want that to do that for my H. I want to do that 4 times. So I'm going to duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. Okay, so there's my letter H. And now I need a space between my letters. So I'm going to now call my symbol space. And now I'm going to do my I, which is 2 dots. So I'm just going to state that there. Okay, so that is the same code right here. My button B. Oh, it's not exactly. I need to have my word space down here. Okay, So this is the same code. And some people will be like, well, it looks like the same number of blocks. And yeah, I agree. Right now, it is the same number of blocks. But it's a little easier to kind of check to make sure. And you're like, oh, dot, 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 space, dot, dot, word space. So it's a little easier to kind of see that in terms of being able to check to make sure that your values are right. Okay, so I'm going to model this.
Okay, so here I am. I've downloaded my code, pressing A. And then if I press B, this is the one that I wrote with my functions. Same thing.
Okay, now some of you can start to kind of see, oh, I can do more things with this. Like you don't have to write a function for dot. You could actually write a function for the letters and have a function A, a B, a C, a D, an E, and then that would be even easier for you to see. So instead of having be like call dot dot dot, you would say call H, and H would execute the dot dot dot. Okay, so functions are nice in that you can write a bunch of code and then call them in, and it makes it a little cleaner, the actual executable code. Okay, so hopefully you can see the possibilities with functions and get creative. Have fun with it.